On Days of Our Lives, Wednesday, March 18th looks like the episode where Salem stops holding its breath and starts breaking under pressure. This is the kind of soap episode where the danger is no longer distant, the lies are getting harder to control, and one decision in the wrong moment could change everything. Fear starts turning real, hidden emotions start affecting judgment, and the people who think they still have control may be the very ones about to lose it. So while earlier in the week the pressure was mostly emotional, Wednesday feels like the day that pressure becomes action. The most dangerous storyline on Wednesday may be Klaus closing in on Liam, because this no longer feels like vague suspense in the background. It feels personal now, and that is what makes it so effective. When a character is being stalked on a soap, the real fear is not just the possibility of an attack. It is the slow, unbearable feeling that danger is already near, that someone is watching, waiting, and choosing the right moment to strike. That is the kind of fear that gets under a person's skin long before anything actually happens. Liam may start picking up on that before he has proof. Maybe it begins with something small, footsteps behind him that suddenly stop, the sense that someone is just out of sight, or that instinctive chill that tells him he is not alone. He may turn around and see nothing. He may tell himself he is imagining it. But deep down, he may already know this is real. That is where the tension starts working. Because the audience knows Liam is not just dealing with nerves. He may be stepping into a trap without fully understanding how close the danger already is. And that makes every quiet moment feel threatening. Every glance over his shoulder matters. Every pause feels loaded. You can almost picture Liam freezing for a second, scanning the area, then calling out, "Who's there?" And when no one answers, that silence may say more than words ever could. Because silence can be its own kind of threat. What makes this storyline even more intense is that Liam is no longer isolated. He has emotional ties now. He has people around him. And the closer Ari gets to him, the more dangerous this situation becomes for her too. That is where the story gets bigger. Klaus targeting Liam does not just put Liam at risk, it creates a circle of danger around anyone who cares about him. That is why this does not feel like random stalking for suspense. It feels like the start of something escalating. Klaus may not just want to scare Liam. He may want to break him, corner him, or send a message. And if that is true, Wednesday could be the episode where Liam goes from feeling uneasy to realizing he may already be in serious trouble. That is the hook here. Not just, is Klaus watching? But, how close is Klaus already? And how long before Liam makes one move too late? At first glance, JJ and Theo bonding may look like one of Wednesday's calmer storylines. But emotionally, this could be one of the most important scenes of the episode. Because JJ and Theo do not share a simple past. The moment these two characters share space, history comes with them. Not loud history, not obvious history, but the kind that sits quietly in the room and changes the emotional weight of every word. That is why this scene matters. On the surface, it may look like a genuine moment of connection. JJ may be glad to see Theo. He may welcome the chance to talk, to reflect, maybe even to feel like some old wounds have softened. Theo may approach the conversation with maturity, warmth, or even calm forgiveness. And if he does, that could make the scene even more powerful. Because forgiveness does not always erase guilt. In fact, sometimes it makes the guilt sharper. JJ may look at Theo and be reminded all over again of one of the darkest moments in his life. The kind of memory that never fully disappears, no matter how much time passes. Even if Theo is not blaming him, JJ may still be blaming himself. Even if Theo has found peace, JJ may still be carrying fear, regret, and the unbearable question of whether he truly moved on at all. That is what gives this storyline such strong emotional tension. Because this is not just a bonding scene. It may be the moment JJ is forced to confront how much of that trauma still lives inside him. A quiet line like, "I tell myself I'm past it, but some things stay with you," would fit him perfectly and reveal so much in just a few words. And that is where viewers should pay attention. Because scenes like this often do more than develop character. They set up consequences. If JJ is being pulled back into those memories on Wednesday, then the real question is what that does to him afterward. Does this conversation give him closure? Or does it reopen fear he thought he had buried? Does it calm him down? Or does it leave him emotionally shaken in a way that could affect his judgment later? That is what makes the scene more than heartfelt. It makes it ominous. Because the most powerful version of this story is one where JJ seems stable on the surface, but underneath, something has been stirred up. Something unresolved. Something dangerous in the wrong moment. So while JJ and Theo reconnecting may look warm at first, it may actually be the emotional setup for a much darker turning point still to come. And that is exactly the kind of quiet story beat soaps use before everything goes wrong. Elsewhere in Salem, Belle interrogating EJ could become one of Wednesday's sharpest and most satisfying showdowns, because this is not about raised voices. It is about pressure, precision, and watching someone dangerous struggle to stay in control. And that is exactly why the scene could be so good. Belle does not need to storm in or make a scene. She is far more effective when she stays calm. When she asks the question no one else is asking clearly enough. When she looks someone straight in the eye and makes them feel that every weak answer only makes them look guiltier. That is the kind of energy this scene needs. Because EJ is used to surviving pressure. He is used to maneuvering through accusations, redirecting suspicion, and sounding polished even when everything around him is falling apart. He always believes he can talk his way through the moment. He believes he can manage the room, manage the story, and manage the person standing across from him. But Belle is not easily managed. And that is where EJ may start to feel the walls closing in. If Belle is questioning him about Stephanie's ordeal, Owen's involvement, and the growing suspicion around Dr. Rolfe, then this is not going to be an easy conversation for him. Every connection matters now. Every coincidence looks worse. Every denial sounds thinner. And Belle may know exactly where to press. You can almost hear her saying, "Then tell me why your name keeps surfacing every time this gets uglier." That kind of line cuts right to the center of the problem. Because EJ may deny direct involvement. He may insist he did not recruit Owen. He may act insulted, as if the accusation itself is offensive. But the more carefully he speaks, the more calculated he may seem. And on a soap, that can be just as incriminating as saying the wrong thing outright. That is what gives the scene real bite. It is not just about whether Belle proves EJ is guilty. It is about whether she can make him crack, not completely, not with a full confession, but just enough to reveal that he knows more than he should. A hesitation, a shift in tone, one answer that comes too quickly or too defensively. That is all a scene like this needs. Because Belle is smart enough to notice the little things. And EJ may be arrogant enough to think he can hide them. That is the perfect combination for tension. The most compelling version of this confrontation is one where EJ technically holds his ground, but still walks away looking more suspicious than ever. Belle may not get the full truth on Wednesday, but she could absolutely force him into a position where his innocence starts sounding harder to believe. And once that happens, the scene stops being just an interrogation. It becomes the beginning of EJ losing control of the narrative. That is why this storyline feels so strong. Not because Belle is guaranteed to break him completely, but because she may be the first person this week to make him realize that the game he has been playing is getting much harder to contain. Then there is Philip's confession to Gabby, and this may be one of Wednesday's most unpredictable scenes because the second a character like Philip decides to confess, The real question is never just what he is saying. It is why he is saying it now. That is what makes this moment feel dangerous. Philip is not the kind of man who suddenly opens his heart with no motive. If he is sitting down with Gabby and choosing honesty, or at least his version of it, then there is probably a strategy behind the timing. He may be trying to get ahead of trouble before someone else exposes him. He may want to control the narrative before the truth gets messier. Or he may be revealing something that he believes could change the way Gabby sees him before she turns against him completely. And that is exactly why this scene could be so good. Because Gabby is the last person who is going to hear a confession and simply nod along. She is going to listen, yes, but she is also going to dissect every word. She will watch his face. She will question the timing. She will want to know why Philip suddenly decided now was the moment to come clean. That creates instant tension. Maybe Philip admits to a secret move he made behind the scenes. Maybe he reveals something he hid because he thought it was necessary. Or maybe the confession is more personal than expected, something that catches Gabby off guard and forces her to rethink what game he is really playing. Whatever it is, the scene works best if Gabby immediately senses there is more underneath the surface. You can almost imagine Philip saying something like, "I'm telling you now because I'd rather you hear it from me than from someone else." That kind of line would say everything. Because it sounds honest on the surface, but underneath it also sounds calculated. It suggests damage control. It suggests urgency. And most importantly, it suggests Philip knows this truth could become a problem very quickly. That is where Gabby becomes the perfect person for this scene. She may let him finish. She may keep her face controlled. But she is not going to let him off easily. A sharp response like, "That tells me when you decided to speak. It doesn't tell me why you stayed quiet before," would fit her perfectly. And that is when the conversation could really start heating up. Because the strongest version of this scene is one where Philip thinks confession will give him an advantage, but instead it puts him in a more vulnerable position. The more he explains, the more Gabby may question his motives. The more carefully he speaks, the more she may suspect he is still holding something back. And in Salem, that is how confessions become dangerous. Not because they clear the air, but because they crack it open. So this may not be a scene that ends with relief. It may end with suspicion, tension, and the feeling that whatever Philip just admitted is only the beginning of a much bigger problem. And if that happens, then Wednesday could mark the moment Gabby stops seeing Philip as merely complicated, and starts seeing him as someone she may need to watch very carefully. Finally, Wednesday throws Leo and Dimitri into real danger. And this may be the episode's most explosive storyline because unlike the slower emotional tension in the other plots, this one feels immediate. Fast, sudden, unstable, and that makes it incredibly effective. Leo and Dimitri are both used to chaos, secrets, and messy situations. Usually, they can talk their way around trouble, flirt their way through tension, or at least pretend they are still in control. But this sounds like the kind of danger that strips all of that away in an instant. No clever comeback, no time to spin the situation, no room to fake confidence. Just instinct, and that is why this storyline matters so much. Because when characters are pushed into physical danger, the truth tends to come out fast. Not through speeches, but through reactions. Through who moves first, through who shields whom. Through who forgets themselves for 1 second because the only thing that matters is saving the other person. That is where Dimitri could become the emotional center of the scene. If danger hits and Dimitri immediately moves to protect Leo, that would say more than pages of dialogue ever could. It would reveal that, underneath everything complicated between them, Leo is the person Dimitri's instincts go to first. Not himself. Leo. And that is powerful. You can almost picture the moment. A sudden threat. A split second of panic. Leo not realizing how bad it is until Dimitri grabs him, pulls him back, or throws him out of harm's way. A moment like that would land hard because it would be quick, raw, and completely unfiltered. No time to think, no time to posture, just action. And for Leo, that kind of moment could hit on multiple levels all at once. Shock, first of all. Maybe even fear so sharp that it leaves him speechless. But after that, gratitude, confusion, emotional vulnerability. Because being saved by someone changes the energy between two people instantly, especially when the relationship was already complicated to begin with. That is what makes the danger more than spectacle. It is not just there to create excitement. It is there to expose emotional truth. If Leo sees Dimitri risk himself for him, then Leo may be forced to confront feelings he has been avoiding, minimizing, or joking around. The moment could shake him, not just because he nearly got hurt, but because it proves something about Dimitri that can no longer be ignored. And once that truth is out in the open, even without words, their entire dynamic could shift. That is why Wednesday's danger may change more than just the plot. It may change the relationship. Because sometimes the most important thing on a soap is not the threat itself. It is what the threat reveals when the masks drop. And if Leo and Dimitri are truly pushed into a life or death situation, then viewers may finally see what matters most to them when there is no time left to hide it. So the real suspense here is not just whether they survive the danger. It is what survives after it. Because if Dimitri's first instinct is to save Leo, then Wednesday may become the moment when their connection stops feeling messy and uncertain, and starts feeling undeniable. Final thoughts. Wednesday, March 18th looks like the days of our lives stops teasing big consequences and finally starts delivering them. Klaus turns Liam's unease into real fear. JJ's time with Theo may awaken emotions that do not stay in the past. Belle pushes EJ hard enough to make him feel the walls closing in. Philip's confession could reshape his connection with Gabby. And Leo and Dimitri may face the kind of danger that changes relationships in an instant. So the real question for Wednesday is not just who ends up in trouble. It is this: who will make one choice under pressure that changes the rest of the week? Because in Salem, that is always when the real fallout begins.